Three songs, three atmospheres, three completely different worlds. One of the interesting things about music is the way it creates images in your mind. You hear a riff, a drum pattern, a certain tone of voice in a vocal, and almost immediately your brain starts building a setting around it. A place, a mood, a scene. Sometimes it's subtle, just a feeling of atmosphere, but other times a song becomes almost cinematic. You can practically see the world the music is describing. Great bands understand this instinctively. They know a song isn't just about the melody or rhythm, it's about environment. The sound design, the tempo, the lyrics, even the silence between the notes. All of it works together. And when it really works, the result is something powerful. A song that doesn't just sound good, it feels like a place. Today we're looking at 3 songs that do this in a different way. First, we'll look at the strange suburban nightmare created by a track from Faith No More. Then we move into something much older and more primal with a song from Metallica. And finally, we end up somewhere completely different. A late-night psychological unraveling set against the wide-open desert from Guns N' Roses. 3 songs, 3 atmospheres, 3 completely different worlds built entirely out of sound. Let's start with one of the strangest and most uncomfortable sonic environments ever recorded. Faith No More. Faith No More formed in San Francisco in 1981, blending metal, funk, and alternative into something completely unclassifiable. By the early 90s, they were breaking expectations, pushing listeners to confront chaos with a wink and a snarl. Their sound thrives on unpredictability. One moment you're laughing at Mike Patton's vocal acrobatics. Next you're staring into the abyss of a haunting riff. That duality sets the stage perfectly for RV. A hidden gem on the band's acclaimed Angel Dust album. Faith No More. Faith No More. Released in 1992, Angel Dust is Faith No More's masterpiece of dissonance and dark humor. Every track feels like a short film. Each riff, each vocal inflection is a carefully placed shot. The album swings from the absurd to unsettling, and RV sits at that intersection. If you listen to RV, it's claustrophobic. It feels like a rickety trailer on an uneven road. The bass slinks and coils like smoke in a dimly lit kitchen. Patton's vocals are playful and menacing. A narrator who knows the absurdity of life while dragging you through it anyway. The imagery is vivid. Broken neon signs flicker. Cracked linoleum reflects harsh overhead lights. And decay feels almost tangible. A creaking door. A distant siren. Suddenly you're inside a world built entirely from sound. Faith No More doesn't just make music, they give you a lens, a camera moving through a surreal American microcosm of the early 90s. By the time the final chord hits, you're not just listening, you've lived there. And that's why RV isn't just a song, it's a cinematic experience. Faith No More showed how a song can trap you inside a strange, surreal world. Fluorescent lights, itchy feet, and the uneasy feeling that something isn't quite right. But the next song takes us somewhere very different. Not into suburbia, but into the wilderness. Because when Metallica wrote Of Wolf and Man, they tapped into something older than civilization itself. If Faith No More represents chaos and surrealism, Metallica represents something older, something primal, formed in 1981 in Los Angeles before relocating to the Bay Area. Metallica quickly became one of the driving forces behind thrash metal. Faster, heavier, and more aggressive than almost anything that came before it. Their early records like Kill 'Em All, Ride the Lightning, and Master of Puppets helped define an entire genre. Razor-sharp riffs, relentless speed, and songs that felt more like sonic assaults than traditional rock tracks. But by the early 1990s, something started to change. The band slowed things down. The riffs became heavier. The songs became darker, more atmospheric, and more deliberate. And that shift led to one of the most iconic albums in heavy metal history. The record that would introduce millions of listeners to Metallica's sound. Released in 1991, Metallica's self-titled album, better known as the Black Album, marked a major turning point for the band. Working with producer Bob Rock, the group slowed down the breakneck speed of their earlier thrash records and focused on massive, deliberate riffs and songs built around atmosphere and power. The result was an album packed with huge, unforgettable tracks like Enter Sandman, The Unforgiven, and Nothing Else Matters. But buried deep in the record is a song that taps into something older than heavy metal itself. Something instinctive, almost mythological. And that brings us to Of Wolf and Man. The opening riff of Wolf and Man feels ancient. It stalks forward slowly like something moving through the forest under a full moon. The drums hit like distant thunder. The guitars growl low and heavy, and suddenly the atmosphere changes. You're not in a concert hall anymore. You're somewhere else. You can picture it clearly. A dark forest, branches scraping the sky, moonlight cutting through fog. The air is cold. Something is moving in the shadows. The lyrics tap into one of humanity's oldest myths, the transformation of man into beast. But the song isn't really about monsters. It's about instinct. The moment when civilization falls away and something older takes over. Metallica turns that idea into sound. The riffs move like muscles tensing. The rhythm feels like a heartbeat accelerating. By the time the chorus arrives, the imagery is complete. The hunt has begun. That's the power of a great metal song. It doesn't just give you a sound, it gives you a world. Metallica's Of Wolf and Man pulls you deep into the forest. Moonlight, fog, and the primal instinct of the hunt. But not every song creates tension through darkness and myth. Sometimes the imagery comes from somewhere much more human and more chaotic. And that's where Guns N' Roses enter the picture. If Metallica tapped into something primal, Guns N' Roses captured something far more chaotic, the sound of a band living right on the edge. Formed in Los Angeles in 1985, Guns N' Roses exploded onto the rock scene with a sound that blended classic hard rock swagger with a raw, dangerous energy that felt completely unpredictable. Their debut album, Appetite for Destruction, became one of the biggest records of all time, powered by songs like Welcome to the Jungle, Sweet Child of Mine, and Paradise City. But success didn't tame the band. If anything, it made things even bigger, louder, and more ambitious. By the early 1990s, Guns N' Roses were no longer just a rock band. They were a cultural phenomenon, pushing their music into stranger, more experimental territory. Breakdown doesn't start with a burst of energy. It drifts in slowly, almost like you're overhearing a late-night conversation. The piano sets the tone first, loose, bluesy, slightly uneasy. Then the guitars slide in around it, creating a sound that feels wide open, but strangely tense. The imagery this song creates feels different from other tracks we've talked about. You can picture a desert highway, late at night. Maybe somewhere outside Las Vegas. The air is warm, the road stretches endlessly into the distance, and the neon lights from distant casinos flicker on the horizon. There's a sense of movement in this song, like someone driving with nowhere in particular to go, letting their thoughts spiral as the miles pass by. Axl Rose's vocals shift constantly between storytelling and confession. Sometimes he sounds amused, sometimes frustrated, sometimes completely detached. And that shifting tone makes the whole song feel very unpredictable, like a conversation that could turn into a laugh or a meltdown at any moment. By the time the song builds towards its final moments, it feels less like a structured rock track and more like a late-night monologue. The sound of someone trying to hold themselves together while everything around them slowly unravels. What makes a great song isn't just the riffs or the lyrics or even the performance. It's the world it creates. Faith No More gave us a surreal, claustrophobic snapshot of American decay. Metallica pulled us into the forest, into something primal and instinctive. And Guns N' Roses took us out onto a desert highway where the night feels endless and the mind starts to wander. 3 completely different bands, 3 completely different songs, and 3 completely different worlds, all built with nothing but sound. And that's the real power of music.
Communicate a message to my audience.